the way we approach roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
In our marriage, very, very traditional. Richard is the breadwinner, and I am home with the children. The home is my domain, and anything outside or car or money related is Richard's domain. Culturally, we almost have this like, everyone has to do everything when you're looking at marriage, right? We both
100%.
do everything. I work and he works, and I get that. Like, that is a lot of people's reality. Both members are maybe working, but that doesn't mean you can't clearly define the roles. It might mean it's not as like traditional as yours and mine, and maybe the husband is going to have to cook and do dishes, or like however you define it.
Yeah.
I don't think that really matters.
How long will it actually take you to do this process? It'll probably only take you a couple days. If you literally just sat down with your spouse and say, hey, let's just figure this out real quick, right? It might take a day, but I think a lot of people think like, well, man, there's so much in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. They just forget to take a step back real quick and just say, hey, let's just do this real quick.
Well,
and that one activity could save you years and decades of turmoil.
So our topic
Let's do
today is, I think it's going to be a really fun one because it's both tactical and philosophical. We got a little bit of both going on. So
Going
I think
deep
it's gonna be
today,
really
huh?
Fun. We are.
I like that.
So welcome to the Vow Factor. We are Richard and Haley Muchka. Got a little over a decade of marriage between the two of us, 4 years or 4 children, very much in the trenches, but very, very much in love with marriage and with each other. And we just
Very
want to
much.
share that with the world.
Very
So
much.
welcome
Very
to the
much.
Vow Factor. How are you, babe?
I am doing good today. We have our Starbucks. So you have yours is a matcha
Lavender.
lavender,
matcha.
and I have the regular matcha with oat milk because that's how I do it.
That's how you do it.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Any other plans for the day?
So tonight we have football.
Mm-hmm.
We have football tonight with the Armor Man, and then of course today is
Mattress
night. And for those of you that don't, I'm sure you know mattress night, but we got all 4 kiddos in the room, and it's pretty much chaos for the first
Oh my gosh.
hour, I would say, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I would say
you know,
more often than not, we look at ourselves and ask, why do we do this?
Yeah, pretty much every night we say that. But then we're like, man, we're gonna totally miss these moments if we
Oh
don't
my
do
gosh.
it, right?
It's
It's like the funniest stuff happens on mattress night. So.
Okay. And so, unless you're confused, mattress night is we let all 4 of our kids sleep in our room, and we watch movies, and we have like a futon at the foot of our bed that our boys sleep in. Our girls are in the bed with us, and it's super chaotic but super fun.
Yes.
And I have to like put it in the calendar whose turn it is to pick the movie, because
Yes.
otherwise it's an argument and no one can agree on anything.
And half time we forget.
No. I have it
Okay,
in the
you have
calendar
better
now.
system now.
I have a
We
better
had a bad,
system
We had
now.
a bad system.
We did
before.
have a bad system.
It was not.
It was an
not
on your
wor-
honor system.
It was not
before.
working good.
It was not working. So it is Harbor's turn tonight. She is
Okay,
a
good.
6-year-old girl, and it's going to be either a princess movie or Tarzan or Hercules, because girlfriend has her mom's weakness for muscles. So
Yes.
it'll be one of those.
Yeah. You asked her the other day, like, Harbor, do you like muscles? And she goes, uh-huh.
Muscles, chest hair, and beards.
And beards, yeah.
she is her
She's
mother's
all
daughter
about
on
it.
those 3 things. Oh my gosh. So fun. Kids are so fun.
They are.
Okay, so today's topic is roles and responsibilities and how they are a support
Mm-hmm.
to your marriage and not a box to be kept in.
Yeah.
That's our topic.
That's
So
great.
we'll tell you guys how we approach it, why we approach it that way,
Yeah.
and then also just address your situation and how you might be able to
Yeah.
apply however
Whatever you
choose.
want to apply, or take what you want, or get rid of everything.
Yes, one of my favorite quotes is chew the meat and spit out the bones. So if we say something valuable, keep it. If we don't, toss it out.
You're either
We're
going to
cool with
learn
that.
what to do or what not to do, but either way, you win.
You're going to learn something. You're learning something today. So funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way we approach roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
In our marriage, very, very traditional,
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah.
So that for us looks like Richard is the breadwinner, and I am home with the children. The home is my domain, and anything outside or car or money related is Richard's domain.
Yeah. 100%.
Or trash related.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Well, now the boys.
The
help with
boys
that.
are really helpful with
Yeah,
that.
they're
Yeah.
very helpful.
But okay, so there's a couple reasons why I think that this is really, really important. And that not necessarily that you do it the traditional way, even though that is what works for us and what we think is best.
Yeah.
But I think it's super important in a marriage that you have your roles and responsibilities very evenly and clearly
Defined.
distributed.
Yeah,
Defined.
yeah,
That's
defined.
the word.
Yeah, I think defined. Yeah. 100%.
And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is it helps you to not be resentful or to build up animosity, right? Because if I do the dishes and that's my role and responsibility, I'm not upset that you didn't do them, right? Because that's just
100%.
not what you do.
Yeah.
And then also, if you do decide to one day step in and do the dishes, I know to appreciate it because that's not what you do, right? So it's not this expectation that, of course, he did it because he does it sometimes. He does it 50% of the time.
Yeah.
And it's also, I'm not upset when you don't do it.
Yeah. There's like zero expectations. Like meaning it's like, it's so clearly defined that we don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, yeah, I'm going to pay the bills. And like Haley does, half the time, you don't even know, you don't even know what's in the bank account. You don't even know, like, there's nowhere on your radar that you're thinking about money. And there's nowhere on my radar where I'm thinking about doing the dishes.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, it doesn't even cross my mind.
Right.
And same with you with like,
and culturally, that's kind of like, ooh, you're getting on sticky ground here, right? Because, well, he uses the dishes and he benefits from the food that he eats. So why doesn't he wash the dishes? It's like, well, no. He also makes the money and you spend the money. So like, we don't need to play that game.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
You're a team, you're supporting each other. And
yes,
it doesn't need to be a tit for tat because that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, 100%. And
but what you just said is a whole other conversation. And we talked about it a little bit this morning, but like, I don't need to look at the bank account or look at the money because I have a very high level of trust in you that it's being handled in a way that like agrees with or aligns with our morals and values. And I'm not worried about that. Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Where you don't need to come to me and be like, hey, what did you do with the kids all day? And where have you been? And what have you guys done? And tell me what everything happened. Because you have a very high level of trust with me.
100%.
And then at the same time, you see the fruits of, okay, the discipline is in place, that these things are in place, the kids are being taught that this is happening. So you see the fruit of that in the same way I see the fruit of the financial decisions that you've made. And so therefore,
yep.
I don't need to know. So I think if you do feel that like overwhelming urge, maybe there's a lack of trust that needs to be examined.
It's like, what are you doing every day? And what, I've heard of like actually husbands doing that.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, hey, tell me what you did today. It's like, really? I mean, but to your point, that just might be a lack of trust, or maybe it's a lack of how they think, right? Because to your point, if I see the results, do I really have to know what you're doing every day?
Right. Does that really benefit?
Does it really what else do I have to see? Like the fruit of your labor is there. So I think it's a really good point.
Which then comes into the like extreme ownership conversation, right? Because if the fruit's not there, then I need to look at that and say, I'm not doing the work I should be doing. And so I've got to buckle down and I've got to do my job.
100%.
And you can't just like,
yep.
Don't ask me what I'm doing. Like, no, the fruit needs to be there in order to have that luxury of not being
100%
hounded.
Yeah, 100%. But so the one thing I would do is like I would like taking a step back. Like if I would say that if that is a point of contention, right, in your marriage, where it's just like you maybe don't have clearly defined roles. Maybe you're wondering every night or every day, is my husband going to finally do X? Or is my wife going to finally do Y? Is she going to do that? But like the beauty of what you're describing right now is that once it's just clearly defined, it's like, dude, there's no arguing. There's no conversation. There's no animosity. Like imagine that every day you both know what the jobs, roles, and responsibilities are, and it's done. Mm-hmm. And I almost think about it like a business. Obviously we have the business, but like if I have an employee that I have an expectation on that employee and they don't know the expectation and they don't know the role and job and responsibilities.
And it's not their fault for not meeting
Guess how much animosity we're going to have in that business? Like a ton of animosity because I'm always going to be frustrated. He's not going to know what to do. And now it's like we're in this like it's a battle zone, not a place where it's like we're a team. You know what I mean? Accomplishing the same mission.
Right.
So to speak. So
and culturally we almost have this like everyone has to do everything.
Yeah.
When you're looking at marriage, right? We both
100%.
do everything.
Yeah.
Because I work and he works and I get that. Like that is a lot of people's reality. Both members are maybe working, but that doesn't mean you can't clearly define the roles. It might mean it's not as like traditional as yours and mine, and maybe the husband is going to have to cook and do dishes, and maybe the wife is going to take the car to get the oil change or whatever. Like however you define it.
Yeah.
I don't think that really matters necessarily, as long as it is defined. And it can be as simple as like literally you can buy a deck of cards on Amazon that it's like this thick, and it has every task and household chore you can imagine. And you can literally just sit there and divide up these stupid cards if you need something like really to help you figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But I think that's step one is like we need to sit down and if you haven't already, and if that's not something that's already happened, you need to sit down and define, okay, this is what I do and this is what you do.
Yeah. And I think, it's kind of a funny thing. It's almost like, okay, how long will it actually take you to do this process? It'll probably only take you a couple days, maybe a day. If you literally just sat down with your spouse and say, hey, let's just figure this out real quick, right? It might take a day, but I think a lot of people think like, well, man, there's so much in the hustle and bustle of everyday life that they just forget to take a step back real quick and just say, hey, let's just do this real quick. Well, and that one activity could save you years and decades of turmoil.
Yeah. And that's the thing with decisions,
and it'll
right?
take a day. It'll take a day.
Making a decision is really quick. It's the like preparing to make the decision that makes it last forever, right?
100%.
You just need to make the darn decision and then move forward with the decision already made. Some people are so slow to make decisions. That just kills me.
One decision could take you 10 years to make. And because it took you 10 years, it's like, what heck?
Is that word?
Yeah.
I'm missing words today, but where you're like anticipating. You're anticipating the decision for 10 years instead of just making the dang decision.
Making the decision. Yep. And then sticking with the decision.
And then sticking with it. Yeah.
Because that's a discipline too.
But then it also, back to like it helps to prevent animosity. It helps to know when you need to appreciate something. When your spouse does do something that's your responsibility, you know to thank them for that because it's not something they usually do, right?
100%.
If I take the trash out for you, you know, like, oh, that's not something she usually does. Like, wow, thank you for doing that.
100%.
It also helps to play to your strengths.
Yes. We were talking about this too.
We were talking about that this morning.
Yeah.
And that if Richard told me that I had to produce half of our mortgage, I don't have the skill set or the strength that he has to do that.
Nor do you have the desire for it.
At all.
Yeah.
I want to be home with our children.
Yes.
Like that's what I want to do. I don't get paid to do that, but that's where I feel called to be. But if
100%.
you told me I had to produce half of it, I'm going to go, I don't even know how I'm going to do that. Right.
Yep.
And that's going to be really, really stressful for me where you do it. I mean, you make it look easy, but it's just something that you do. Whereas if I told you had to do a week's worth of laundry, you're going to feel like you're swimming upstream.
Yes.
And it's just figuring out what are your strengths as people and how can we divide these up in a way that plays to your strengths and plays to my strengths. And it's not like fighting an uphill battle.
Yes. So if I were to diagram this, right, imagine 3 bubbles, right? So in one bubble, you have desire. In one bubble, you have what are your natural strengths? And then in one bubble, what do you want to actually do, right? And in the center of that bubble is like, that is your role. Like that's where you're playing to your strengths, your desire, and what you actually want to accomplish. And for us, obviously, when we were dating, we got pretty clear on that initially, right? Like you were a nanny for 7 years. You told me straight up, I want to be a mom. I want to have kids. I want to take care of the home. And that's what I want to do. Right. And don't even bring up working because that ain't going to happen. Right. So like, I knew that early on. And because of that, it was just like, okay, like.
Yeah. And to our benefit, you had a stay-at-home mom. I had a stay-at-home mom. We both were very, very confident in the benefit of that.
Yeah.
So we were both very much on the page. But yeah, dating really did figure out a lot of this for us.
Oh, 100%.
Like when we got married, we just kind of fell into our roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
There was never like.
Yeah.
There's not really a big adjustment period in that way for us. And
so what would be your recommendation? Because there might be a lot of couples that listen to this and they're like, well, yeah, that's cool. You guys figured it out during dating. Like we didn't do that, right? We didn't do that. And so now we're in this marriage where we maybe don't have the clearly defined roles, where we are a little bit frustrated that one person's not doing the other thing. And we're like, well, like what would be your advice?
Honestly, it would be super simple. go get that deck of cards on Amazon.
Yeah, deck cards.
It exists. I've actually bought it.
I wonder, like when we release a show,
I'll share the link.
We should share the link.
100%.
We'll share the link in the show note. Yeah, show
yes,
notes,
I will, because I think it's actually really important, and it's a kind of a fun, easy way to do it. That's like non-threatening, right? It's a deck of
100%.
cards. So we're going to sit down and we're going to divvy out these cards. That's what I would do if you're married and haven't done it, and you're kind of having those conversations, and it's building up some animosity.
Yeah.
Start with cards.
And here's the thing too, like I think about going back to childhood, right? A lot of times you want to, you have this maybe natural desire to say, well, my parents and my family did it this way, right? But you might have a different, like when you actually sit down and you start talking to your spouse, you might realize that maybe you want to do things differently than your family.
But you should.
And that's a little scary because you don't have a model of what to do, right? Like it's, you were modeled X, but you want to do Y. So now you're like in this place of like, well, I want to do something different, but I only know X. And so that's a scary place to be. But once you identify that as you have these conversations, you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to have the life that my parents had, or like my like the marriage that was example to me. I want a different path. Well, that could be scary, right? And because of that, you might want it, but you're not doing it. And you have this internal chaos within you of like, I'm living this life that I think I should be living, but not the life that I want to live. Right. And you haven't communicated it. So I don't know why I went there, but
well, kind of in that same note, and this is something that we did have to deal with.
Because there's a lot of things, I think the point that I was saying is there's a lot of things that we do as a family, as a unit, that weren't modeled to us. But we wanted to do it. So we had to figure out a path to make those things happen.
Yeah. Well, when you get married, you're starting a new family, whether it's just the two of you or you have a dozen kids, you're a new family, right? And so you're going to take pieces from this family, you're going to take pieces from that family, you're going to take pieces from this podcast you listen to or this book that you read, and you're going to mesh all of those together to form your own thing. It's not going to look like either side entirely.
100%.
There's going to be bits and pieces. And that's such a neat, beautiful thing.
It is.
But one thing that we did have to deal with is that in my family, my dad paid the bills, and I have such a vivid memory of him sitting at the kitchen table with his little calculator and all his bills. And
me too, actually.
I remember
this.
my dad doing
I was
that.
like, this guy's old.
Oh
man.
my gosh. Well, that's a whole other story. But I was very much in the age of like online banking, and he would
100%.
still, when I lived at home, he would make me sit down once a week and balance my checkbook. I'm like, Dad, the internet does this for me, and he didn't care. I had to sit down and do it.
I was frustrated, yeah.
But so that was how my family worked. My dad handled all of that. In your family, your mom paid the bills.
My mom did all that.
So then I got married thinking, well, you're going to do that. Of course you're going to do that. That's what the man does. And then you thought, well, you're going to do that. You're the woman. Of course we're gonna do that.
It's a great example.
And so there was, probably 5 years where we were kind of at this standstill of like, I'm not going to do it. That's your job. No, I'm not going to do it. That's your job. And then finally you buckled and you started doing it because I was not going to do it.
Yeah. I was like, well, dude, nothing's going to be paid if I don't start doing something.
Paid.
And honestly, like that's a great example. And you know how many times I forgot to pay bills. Like I've literally forgotten to pay almost everything. Yeah, like we had electricity. I don't know if we have electricity shut off. We might have.
Never electricity, but definitely
water multiple times. Our internet goes out multiple times.
Our cell phones
like have gone out. Like
the cell phone thing. By this time, Richard was already running a multi-million-dollar company. Like there was no excuse for this. And we had this big event with a bunch of people that like flew in from all around the country to come to this event. We took them all to breakfast. We were going to this thing. And we had to navigate from Mimi's to the Kulian headquarters, remember?
Oh, man.
Our cell phones were off. We had no cell service because you didn't pay the bill. And so we're having to call Richard's assistant, like, we can't navigate there. Like, can you please pay the phone bill real quick?
Oh, I do remember this. Yes, I do remember this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just things like that.
But it was a conversation like that where, at the end of the day, I was like, look, Haley does not want to do it. I do not want to do it. But as my role, and we kind of define this, like I'm going to take care of the money. So that's a money activity. So I buckled down. I'm like, okay, that's my role.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not very good at it, but I do it. And
thankfully,
and we made
automated bill pays.
Yeah, automated bill pay. Like, yeah. That
Except when we lose a debit card and then.
Which happens often.
And it's such a pain. But that is one way we've had to one thing we had to navigate while we were married.
Yeah, 100%.
Because our families of origin did it opposite.
Yeah.
So then how do you mesh
Even
that?
gaming's another one. I grew up just playing games. And I thought, yeah. And I was like, hey, for my boys, like, they can play games. Like, let them play games and like not like try to limit so much and XYZ. But you had a different approach. You were like, no,
a very, very strong, different approach.
Very strong, different approach. And so as I look back and we had a conversation about it, and I'm like, you know what? I think there's a lot of truth to what Haley's saying. I think there's benefits in games. Like for me as a dad, I always think I want to make memories with my kids playing games because I think it'll be a memory that I'll look back and just say, hey, that was like fun, But at the same time, I also know that gaming and it can kind of go overboard and you can get addicted to it and it can be kind of take over your entire like life too, and that's not good, right? So the gaming subject has been one that we've kind of gone back and forth on and try to figure out and navigate, and now we've kind of come to a good conclusion on it. I mean,
well, that was one.
Decently.
So that one in particular was one that I kind of like said, okay, we're going to go with Richard's approach here, and we're going to see how this goes. And we did it for a little while, and I could not handle it.
Yeah,
I could not do it. The fruit was something I was observing was not something that I wanted or valued, and so I kind of took the reins and said, babe, we tried your way, and it's not working, and now we're trying my way.
Yeah,
and then we did that for a while. And now we like literally within the last 2 weeks, we've kind of come to a place where we're trying it again.
A different approach.
Trying a different approach. That's maybe a mesh of the two of our approaches together. And we're going to see how that goes. I'm not advocating for anything because
there might have been extremes on both ends. It was like your extreme was like no games.
Never.
My extreme was like maybe too much freedom to play games. So now we're just trying to figure out what's that middle path where.
Right. And our boys are getting a little older.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Definitely very much figure that out. I'm not going to speak as an expert.
Yeah, and so if you're a parent and has kids, I mean, the whole game situation. It's one of these tricky balances, Obviously, we don't want to be the family where we're at dinner and we're on iPads. Like we try to totally stay away from that.
No, don't do that.
Like there's just a rule, right? It's like no iPads or games at family tables, and that's
my rule probably goes farther.
Yeah, for sure. But it's little things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So also kind of in the same conversation, there's also, so we talked about this also this morning.
Yeah.
We kind of have our pre-podcast coffee date in the morning with the kids running around like crazy just to kind of hash some of these things.
It was the first time we've done it, but we'll start calling it that. Our pre-podcast coffee date.
But there does also come a time where personal responsibility is also still very much a thing, right? So just because the home is my domain and that's my responsibility, that doesn't mean that I'm a maid in our home and I just have to clean up after you with everything, right?
Yeah.
So is my responsibility to wash your laundry? Yes, that falls into my roles and responsibilities. Is it my responsibility to go fish all of your clothes from all around the house? No. Do I have to do that a lot? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also have to take personal responsibility in that. Is it Richard's responsibility to keep our cars cleaned? Yes. Is it Richard's responsibility to take all the kids' shoes inside and jackets? And no, that's probably my job, So like you've got to
100%
have respect for each other too. He's not my sugar daddy and I'm not his maid. We have to.
Well, I am your sugar daddy, but let's be honest.
But we have to respect each other and respect our roles.
I think so, but I mean, but look, this is what I know. Okay, I am messy. I leave clothes everywhere. I don't even half the time I probably don't even realize it because I'm so ingrained in my habits at this time. But you pretty much do that. And I know in the back of your head, you are probably a lot of times thinking, this is kind of frustrating. Like there's clothes, I'm picking them up. But what tools are you using? Because you don't really complain to me very much. I mean, like you might bring it up every once in a while if it gets really out of hand. You know what I mean? Like
really bad mood.
And you might, or if you're in a bad mood or whatever, you might bring it, but it's very rare, right? So you do it even though you know that like, I'm not really thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it would be interesting to know what your frame of mind is with that and how you convince yourself that like, no, this is just kind of, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it without complaining, and I'm going to do it without saying anything.
Yeah.
Well, that's 99% of the time, that's what you do.
Well, and that's a really interesting conversation, and I think it's so much bigger than just this conversation.
Yeah. Might be a whole separate podcast.
It's a whole other thing. But I think the one thing I always try to remind myself is that like Richard's not doing this to get me or because he doesn't respect me or like there's no ill intent here. And I think that's always my advice to wives is like always assume the best of your husband, right? You can tell yourself 2 stories. Either way, it's a story. But you can tell yourself, oh my gosh, he left these here because he doesn't care about me. He doesn't even see the work that I do and he doesn't care. And he thinks I'm beneath him and I should do this, which is not going to serve you or your marriage or help you to have a very good, peaceful day, right?
That's right.
Or you could tell yourself, oh my gosh, you're like Richard was super busy this morning and he was probably talking on the phone with somebody from work and he didn't even remember that he left his shorts here. And it takes me 2 seconds to pick him up and put him in the hamper and not think about it again. And then it doesn't ruin my day versus stewing on it all day and making myself and my children miserable. And you don't even know why.
100%. Yeah.
Like, how does that benefit anybody?
Yeah. And then at the end of the day, you're like mad at me. I'm like, what the heck?
And you have no idea why.
I'm like, what happened? You know? Like, yeah.
It's like you used the phrase earlier this week about a different thing, but it was, it's like drinking poison and hoping somebody else will die. It's like,
oh, yeah.
Why would I do that?
100%.
Which, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's something to it too, like the mood of the house, like the energy of the home. And
I think if you have 2 people who really are seeking out to serve each other and not looking to be served, but the goal is to serve each other and I'm trying to serve you and you're trying to serve me, then you're being served in the process, but your mindset and your headspace is serving. I think that can eliminate a lot of animosity.
Yeah, 100%.
But obviously that works best when both people are doing it.
It does. It does. But again, this all goes back to the point of the podcast, which is roles and responsibilities, which is whatever those
Define
are.
them.
Whatever those are. And I think that's why at the end of the day, the main thing is having those clearly defined. Because then everything else falls into place. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know. I think, and going back to my mood and energy of the home, like having because you do a really good job of making sure that the home is somewhere like everybody wants to be, right? Where it's like, if you're in the home, it's comforting, it's inviting, it's just, there's a good energy, there's a good atmosphere where people can thrive in the home. And if you have animosity with your wife, your husband, or these roles and responsibility issues, it's so hard to have that like on a consistent basis because the energy and the mood and the vibe of the home starts to kind of like it goes down. You know what I mean? And I remember as
kids are so sensitive.
Yeah,
to that.
and I remember as a kid, right? And again, not to get too crazy on childhood, but my parents obviously had their share of arguments and stuff. But I remember as a kid, I could measure the vibe. Like I would walk into the home and if there was like you could feel it, you could sense it, it would definitely change your whole mentality. You know what I'm saying? And so like, I know for our family, like I want to make sure like if the kids are in the home, if you're in the home, there's a good energy, that's settling, that's relaxed, that's comforting, that's peaceful, that's all these things. And I think that just produces a better family experience.
Yeah. Well, as a really young wife, I remember reading this quote somewhere where it's something, I'm going to butcher it, but something about let the wife make the husband sad to leave and let the husband make the wife glad he came home or something like that. It's said in a better way. But that always struck me so like I want to make sure that my home is a place my husband wants to be, not that he's running away from.
100%. You've always said that.
And that, oh my gosh, like even still, that just speaks to me so much. Like that's one of my life goals.
Yeah.
Is to make sure our home and me more than our home, right? I think at the end of the day, our family is home, and then wherever that is doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
but our family
the location
is
doesn't really. Yeah, the location's not home. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But that I, as their wife and as their mom, that I am a place they want to be.
100%.
Then I've won at life.
Yeah, and you've done that. And I mean, again, for those that don't know, we are together a lot. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to work from home. Some guys would say I'm unfortunate enough to I mean, I've heard this before.
Yeah,
I've heard really like we're like, oh man, I can't wait till my wife's, gonna be doing this because I get my time to get like, dude, if that ever comes out of my mouth, like that is I don't want that life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not why I'm. I hear that a lot. I hear that often.
I didn't tell you this, but I had a doctor's appointment earlier this week. And I was talking to the nurse and telling her that I was a stay-at-home mom. So then the nurse was telling the doctor, oh, yeah, this is Haley. She's a stay-at-home mom, whatever. And then the nurse said, oh, yeah, she's so lucky she has to stay home with her kids. And then the doctor says, or unlucky, however you look at it. And I remember thinking like, oh.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
That is not how I view my role at all.
Yeah. I mean, you've heard statements before. The old ball and chain. Oh man, is the old ball and chain home? It's like, dude, like watch out. Like you got to watch out how you talk.
Yeah.
Because you can start speaking these things into existence. You know
well,
what I mean?
And that's why our whole thing with this podcast is changing the cultural narrative of marriage, right?
100%.
Because and like people say stuff like that, and then your kids overhear that, and then they internalize that, and then they grow up and they think that's what marriage is, and it's just a whole cycle, and you got to be careful with those things. Like
you turn that voice into a belief, and then once it's a belief,
it's action.
It's action. It's like
life.
is from Tony Robbins, but every action you take reinforces that belief, and now you're just in a perpetual cycle of nonsense. So. But my original point is that we're together a lot, and our kids are homeschooled, and half the time when we tell this to people, they don't understand it. They're
Why
like,
would you do that?
They're like, how does your wife, like, how is she with 4 kids all day? Like, they can't fathom that. And here's the funny part is you couldn't fathom another life. You couldn't fathom another way.
No.
Like, you're like, how could I not be with my 4 kids all day long?
There is no other way for us.
Yeah.
That is it.
And so, for us, it's just like, I think we've just made a decision as a family that the best times are together. And the more things we can do together, we'll have a better life. Like that, we've convinced ourselves of that. And so that's what we try to do. We try to just do things as much as humanly possible together. Yeah. And so.
Yeah.
I enjoy.
Yes. Now, back to like the kind of tactical side of this. When it comes to raising our children.
Yeah.
I think you and I both play a role in this and sharing our responsibilities with our children. Me more so at this point because our kids are a little young to understand the full scope of your responsibility.
Yeah.
But not even because like our oldest knows like, hey, when dad's not here, I open mom's car door.
Yes.
And he is definitely internalized like when dad's not here, I'm the protector. To the point that like, this is so funny. Our son Riker, he's 10. She says, yes, your kids either want a marriage like yours or a marriage exactly opposite. That's true.
Yeah. I've seen that.
But our son Riker is 10. And when I go get gas and you're not with us, I keep a little pocket knife in my glove compartment and he'll take the knife out and he'll open it and he'll just hold it until I leave the gas station. Yeah. Like he has internalized that he's the protector.
Yes.
And so like he's taken some of your role and responsibility and understands it. He doesn't understand the full scope though. But
it's also too because it's been communicated too. Like you've told him that. Like, son, when dad's not here.
You've taught him.
And we've both kind of taught him, right? But it's not like he just started opening doors. It was like, no, son, open the door for your mom. Right. Like she's your mom. Like you should open the door. And it was like so it's not like it's just magically going to happen.
Not, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
nothing magically.
You gotta steer him. You gotta tell him what,
Yeah.
But I think there's a good point to that, but yeah.
But so then I also have the responsibility of teaching them my roles and responsibilities. And I don't just teach them to my girls, I teach them to my boys too. And there's a big reason for that we'll get into. But I will teach my boys how to switch the laundry over. How do you turn the washing machine on? We're going to strip your bed sheets and we're going to wash them and we're going to do that once a week. And this is how, you're going to unload the dishwasher for me. Now, this kind of gets into a funny conversation, but Richard didn't learn any of that growing up.
I did vacuum. I vacuumed a lot. I was an expert vacuumer.
Excellent vacuumer. But
really good vacuumer.
I mean, that's not even the point necessarily. But
yeah.
And I hope and pray that when our children get married, that they adhere to traditional gender roles, just because I think that is what works the best.
Yeah, for sure.
Our personal belief. But I still want my children, my sons especially, to have the capability to help their wives should the need arise, right? So, for example, one time I was talking to a friend of mine and she was talking about how messy her kids are in the kitchen and how whatever. And that her son sometimes, he wants a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at 9:00 at night before bed. And that he makes such a mess, she doesn't even let him make it. She just whatever. The conversation was like, he expects her to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I remember saying like, well, you could just have him make it. And then whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But she was like, oh, and I said, he could make a sandwich, because one day he's being married and his wife might not want to make him a sandwich at 9:00.
Yeah.
And then her response back to me was like, well, I make my husband his sandwich at 9:00.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, that's great. I'm glad. And I think if you're doing it out of a place of service and if that's something you want to do, you should do that.
100%.
I have no issue with that.
Yeah.
But when it's the expectation and he doesn't have the preparation to make his own sandwich, and now you're setting his wife up with someone who needs to do that for him,
100%.
then I have an issue.
Yeah.
Right? Because what if she's nursing? She's sick. She doesn't feel well. She's been with the kids all day. She comes downstairs and now her husband needs a sandwich. Are you kidding me? You teach him, go make a peanut butter jelly sandwich and make one for your sister too and go take it in her room because she'll love it.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, like.
Yeah, 100%. Those are teaching moments.
But because you need to realize you're not raising a perpetual child. You're raising someone's future husband, someone's future wife, someone's future mother, someone's future father.
Yeah.
That's who that person's going to be a majority of their life, not a kid in your home.
100%.
And so you need to think about those things when it comes to raising your children too, making sure they understand all of the roles and they can step into them whichever way fits for their family too. You don't want to set. I just always hope and pray that I don't have my daughter-in-law or my son-in-law looking at me one day and being like, "How did you not teach them this?"
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I want to be like, "Wow, thank you so much for raising this person," which I really do
Basic
feel
life
for you.
skills.
Basically, and you know, some people are gifted the gift of celibacy, which I pray is not my children's gift, but some people are.
That's true.
And so, what if your son is alone for the rest of his life?
Yeah, 100%.
You don't want him to live in a pigsty, right? I mean, give him some skill.
No, that's right. Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
And the fact that he's messy after making a sandwich isn't a reason for him not to make a sandwich. It's a reason to call him back to the kitchen and say, "Hey, you know what? You're going to clean up this peanut butter and we're going to wash this dish because I already cleaned up the kitchen." And like, you have to teach children to absorb that kind of stuff and not take it for granted.
And that's what I've really appreciated about you is that because teaching is actually a lot of work.
It's a ton of work.
And that's why most people don't do it. It's way easier just to like say, I'm going to make the freaking sandwich. Because now when you get into the teaching moment, that takes time. It takes effort and energy and people scream and they don't like it.
And they argue with you and they don't want to do it.
And I am convinced that's why people don't do it. 100%. It's because the harder method is to teach. The easier method is just to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
But we've talked
about
you can make the hard choice now and do the hard thing right now that makes your life easier later.
Yeah.
Or you could do the easy thing right this second, but you're going to have a hard time for a long time.
And self-admittedly, honestly, you're good at choosing the hard way. I'm way better at just choosing the easy way. I'm like, dude, I'll just do it. Like, that's honestly, I'm just being honest. Like, half the time, I just want to just do it. But like you, on the other hand, like you teach, like you do the hard way, like almost every time. I find myself slipping.
Which is so interesting.
And you know this about me. Like I do. Like I tend to like take the easier, like now path. You know what I mean?
That's so funny. But what's really interesting about that is that may be true parenting wise. Maybe. I mean, I don't think you're a lazy parent by any stretch, but maybe. But like when it comes to work, you're the best delegator I know. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm the master delegator.
You are the master delegator.
But yeah, it is interesting. So. But,
yeah. So I've done a ton of talking. So I think most of this has been from the female perspective of my roles and responsibilities. So how do you view it as your role and responsibility as far as, you know, protector, provider? How does it look from your point of view?
Well, from my point of view, I mean, so here's the big benefit that I did have is that my dad was the provider and protector, right? And my dad was a hard worker. I mean, he just, you know, he worked
6
hard.
days a week.
6 days a week. He got after it. You know what I mean? Now, you know, he was obviously not maybe in the greatest vehicle, but so I had that kind of growing up, and that was a big thing, a big advantage, I think, of mine. And so as a man, I just thought, like, when we got married, it was a lot of pressure because I was like, dude, I have to make money.
I'm the man now.
Like I have to make money, and money is just so primal. It's like you know, there's such a crazy fear around money because you don't want to be homeless, you don't want to be without food, you don't want to be without shelter. Now, again, it's kind of fears that maybe you like are kind of not reasonable, but you fear them anyways. Like you do fear not having home, like you do fear not having food. Like it's just a primal thing. So I remember as a man, like that was really, it's a scary time, you know. And so, but being married and having kids helped me level up, and you helped me level up because you always, like to this day, you still call me out. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm if I'm not doing what I need to be doing or shouldn't be, like you're not afraid to just say, dude, you got to step it up. Do you know what I mean? And you did that early on in my marriage, and that just helped me because I think every guy, dude, at the core of them, they just want to stay like a little kid. You know what I mean? They just like these big kids in their heart, but then you get married, you get responsibility, and you're like, dude, I got to start doing stuff.
Yeah, because that's funny because you know every woman I think needs a really wants a man that's going to protect her and lead her. So it's like those two things
Yes.
almost like don't really work together.
Yes.
You know?
And that's the beauty of marriage is that like, in my opinion, it's, well, I just, in my experience, I would have never become a man without getting married and having kids. Like I would have been just perpetual like little boy inside, you know, but then having that and having you as like somebody that was challenging me and helping me grow and then having kids and I had to protect them and think about them and think about you. Like, so I guess my point is that, for me, it wasn't an easy road. Like it wasn't just natural. Like I really had to like learn how to do this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it for the man, especially in my role where I am the provider, where you are kind of the protector, is you have to learn, like you have to learn it. You know, like for example, like some women, I like for a woman naturally, I feel like they're naturally more nurturing, right? They have a natural thing to like know how to take care of somebody, right? But like making money is different. Like you don't naturally just know how to make money and how to like do your finances and how to make sure like things are taken care of and that you're supporting and you're investing and you're saving and you're like making things go like happen. You know what I mean? Like you're not born with these innate things. Like these are all things you have to like really learn and go through some like hard knocks along the way, you know? So
I think that's true for men and women, right? Like,
oh
like
yeah,
you said,
100%. Women in a much different way.
Yeah, women are natural nurturers, but like the actual skill set of like
100%.
How do you schedule laundry? Like
Yeah.
That's something that like it just takes a lot of time to learn.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of skill sets.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But what I can say, there was a lot of fear in it for me. There was a lot of fear in it.
Yeah. Well, and so one thing just I've observed being married to you is that you are, in our situation, you are the breadwinner. You make the money in our home.
Yeah.
And you don't ever seem to feel any animosity with me spending the money. Now, I'm not a huge spender. So like, you know, I think you can run into dynamics where there's like this exorbitant, like,
Yeah.
you're not sticking to the budget or you're not, you know, and that's a separate issue. But
Yeah, 100%.
I do spend probably majority of the money just making our house run. And
Yeah, because you're spending
it
it for 5 people.
Right. But you don't ever seem to have any like animosity or resentment about that. So like, I don't feel the resentment for picking up your clothes. Why? What is your mindset around money that makes you not resentful that it's being spent?
Well, I have always thought of money, like I'm not a spender either. That's my thing. Like I'm not really a spender. And so honestly, like as soon as we had shelter and food and like a good savings account and investments, I'm like, what do we need money for? You know what I mean? But like, so my mindset is like the money's there to just make life easier and better. So it's like, if you want to get the, you know, kids this and it makes their life easier, makes their life better. Like that's what the money's there for. You know what I mean? And so I never have any resentment when you spend money because what are we going to do with it? Are we going to just keep saving it, keep storing it and keep like harvesting
Which we do.
Yeah, we do
And
it.
important.
But it is important. Like that is very important. But at some time it's like, what's the money for? Right?
Well, okay.
Like
So
if you
correct
just
me
break
if I'm
down
wrong.
what money's for.
Tell me if I'm like way off base.
Yeah.
But I think maybe part of it is that because there is a really high level of trust between the two of us.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I'm not going to go blow money on things that we don't need or whatever.
Yeah.
So then when I do purchase something, maybe you just feel like, all right, well, it must have been something we needed. And it's not like a issue.
Well, it's never an issue.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah, it's
so
never an
I
issue.
guess I'm saying if you are a wife and your husband does have those issues, like maybe you need to seek counseling and maybe there's a bigger issue control wise or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe your husband has a trust issue because you haven't stuck to the budget and you know, making, like you said,
100%,
making money is hard.
Yeah.
And it's, I would assume as a husband, it's probably really, really stressful to see the money go that you're bringing in and not going, like you said, if you're not saving, if you're not investing and you have all
Yeah.
the like, and the money's gone
100%.
and the kids have a new bounce house. It's like,
Yeah.
hold
yeah,
on.
yeah.
So like you need to come together as a couple, agree, and finances is going to be a whole other show
That's
that
a
we don't need to get into
whole
right now.
nother
But
topic. Yeah.
I think as a wife, it's your responsibility. Okay, what is our goal financially, and how do I help make sure that I'm helping us stick to that, and I'm not sabotaging that? And then I think you can have a lot of freedom as a wife, but you need to make sure you're not sabotaging your husband's goals there, because it is such a hard thing to do.
Yeah. And we talk about that stuff. And like you said, that's going to be another episode, but we've always kind of talked about what the goal for what the finances
we're on
are.
the same page there, for sure.
And again, right, we've been blessed to kind of figure some stuff out financially, but we did do the first thing, right? We were saving the money. We did we were investing the money, you know.
And one
so
thing
it's
that's
like
a huge priority to us, and was before we had money, was generosity. And so that's something we always prioritize. To make sure,
100%.
like, we were always very much on the same page with like what are our core values,
Yes.
which we're going to do a podcast. But remember the drawing we made of the
Yeah, I
pillars?
don't know. Do we still have that drawing?
I do still have it. I'm going to frame it.
You still have the
But
drawing? This
we
was like
drew.
7, 8 years ago.
Oh my gosh,
10,
yeah,
9 years ago.
It's like the pillars of the Mujica family, and so
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm going to bring that out one day. But
yeah, when it comes to money, look, you're just not, you don't buy stupid stuff. Like, you're not a spender.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps. I mean, to just be honest with you, like, if you were a spender and you were just literally just spending money frivolously, like, we'd have probably a lot more conversations around
right.
it. But like, we both have kind of figured out, like, money is not for that. Like, we're not material. We're there. Like, we try to use it on either health, on, schooling, on, whatever. It's like, we have our buckets for money, and and most of it's not material or just like things.
Right. Which is how it works for us. And, other couples are going to be different. But I think the bottom line is, A, you're on the same page.
Yeah.
And B, you as a husband or as a wife are sticking to the agreement. And then I think it'll eliminate a lot of argument.
Yeah. In fact, I've
and
said this.
it'll continue to build trust.
Yeah, 100%. I actually want to get rid of 90% of the things we own.
I know. You could be a minimalist. We all know. We all know.
Just saying.
Yes. So, okay. So I think we're pretty close to done here. I'm going to give you guys that are live with us.
Is there anybody live? How many people
There
live?
are. I got to find out. But I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. If anyone has any questions, throw them in. And
we're going to throw some questions out there?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, man.
So if anyone has anything, throw it in there real quick. Otherwise, we're probably going to wrap up this podcast. I'll give it let's give them 30 seconds to type up what they want.
People are on there?
I don't know how. I can. I don't know. I know Sam Brodeen. Taylor.
Nice. Taylor.
Tamaguchi.
Oh, Tamaguchi.
Okay. Do you remember Jackson from Riker's flag football team?
Holy smokes, yes.
His mama.
Oh, his mom's on there. Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay, cool. Well, if there's no, while you're looking at that, okay, so if you were to summarize this episode and say, because it was on traditional, or what was it? The topic is
Gender roles. Roles and responsibilities, and how they support your marriage, not box you in.
So if you were to wrap it all up, how would you wrap it all up?
Step 1, clearly define roles and responsibilities. That. Do that tonight.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah. And then from there, don't be resentful about your roles or responsibilities. Like, sometimes you just got to buckle down and do things that aren't fun.
Yeah,
and both sides are going to have to do that. And are you going to love everything in your bucket? No.
Yeah.
That's life. Do it anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you agree to your roles and responsibilities, follow through on them. And then be sure to ask for help when you need it. Because now okay, this is my role and my responsibility, and he's not going to jump in and do it. So if I need help, I need to ask. And then also know when to say thank you if someone does just see a need that you have and do it for you. Like, say your husband knows, oh my gosh, she has worked really hard today, and I'm just going to wash the dishes for her. Now you know that you have to appreciate that, and you have to say thank you, because that's in your camp, and he did it. You know what I mean? So
100%.
I would say those are the 3 main things. Clearly define your roles and responsibilities.
Yep.
Do the dang thing. And don't complain about it, and don't sit there and wallow in your sorrow. Like, get your head right. And then be appreciative when your spouse does step up. And then the 4th thing, I'm going to say, be observant of your spouse. When they do need help, be happy to step in and help them and notice it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. What would you, okay.
No, I agree with that. And then this is how I would wrap it up is, and if you do this, I think that a lot of turmoil, if you have some in it will literally just disappear.
I agree.
Because how many arguments do you think are around roles and responsibilities?
A lot.
Or not even arguments, unstated things, thoughts that go through your mind throughout the day that you don't even tell your spouse.
That turn into an argument later that's not even about the argument you're talking about.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Because I can tell, I mean, again, right, we don't have a perfect marriage by far, but one thing we don't really ever argue about is roles and responsibilities. Like, I can't think of the last thing we've talked about. It's like we don't even think about it.
Yeah.
So I think that brings a lot of freedom in your marriage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that was so fun.